2018, I got involved with a business partner who subsequently said, let's move down to Naples, Florida. Let's start this business project. And Luke, 6 months in, everything went to hell. It was literally a movie. I mean, the FBI was involved. I can't get into it. It was wild. I asked myself, how did I get here? I lost everything. I lost all my money, lost the houses, lost cars, credit was ruined. And my wife and kids are looking at me like, what do we do? And we moved back to Indiana, licking our wounds. Exactly a year later, truth be told, I'm like, I can't do this thing called life anymore. I can't do it. If this is what life feels like, count me out. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And I was sitting here contemplating whether or not I want to live. And I heard a voice say, change the way you look at it. And that's when everything changed.
I'm Luke, and you're listening to the Luke Mind Power Podcast. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode on the Luke Mind Power Podcast. I have a super special guest with me today. He's someone that goes by the branding of life is mental. And his name is Derick, and I want to welcome you to the Luke Mind Power Podcast, man, because I know that, bro, you got some power and some fire, and I'm excited for you to share that with us today.
Well, man, I appreciate you having me on. This is, like we talked before we got on, this has been long overdue. I'm grateful for this time that we get to share. So thank you for having me on.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. I know we all have a story. We've all come from somewhere. I know you're an athlete or ex-athlete, but I think that, we shouldn't actually, if you were an athlete, I mean, how much does it mean, to actually have a healthy lifestyle, to live your dreams? It's probably something that you probably it's a bit habitual now for you. So, but yeah, tell us a little bit more about your story and how you kind of evolved from what you went through, with being an athlete and then coming into, coaching or speaking or, sharing the wisdom that you share, because it's pretty deep, man. Like when I watch some of your videos, bro, I'm like you and I was kind of like, before I was coming on, I was like, I could so make a skit out of you. Out of your content, because when someone asks you a question, you sit there for like 5 seconds before you answer it,
Yeah.
But it's powerful, bro. Like, it's mad. But yeah, I'll leave that up to you, man. Go for it.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, because I've always been what we call a deep thinker since I was little. But I just figured this is just the way I am, and I never thought anything about it. But coming up, we moved around quite a bit. My dad had a job that about every 3 years we would move, so I was always the new kid at school, right? So early on, I started to learn different parts of the country. People would perceive and see life differently. Unbeknownst to me, I was kind of watching. And then, like you said, I fell in love with the game of basketball at age 7, played all through high school, college, got done there, played 8 years for the Harlem Globetrotters, traveled all around the world. And these 8 years, I was able to see again on a global level how people perceive life differently. The people in Argentina viewed life and experienced life differently than they did in Australia. And I remember sitting in my hotel room one time and thinking about when I was a kid and moving around and seeing all these different perspectives. I'm like, what if life really isn't set in stone? What if life was really based on how you look at it? This was like 20 years ago when I was thinking this. Time went on. I got done with the Globetrotters, all good things coming to an end. And it's like, what do I want to do next? And my mother, people ask, who's your mentor? Who is your guru? And I'm like, my mom was. She always has been. She's always been the one teaching me. She's always been the one like instilling mindset inside of me. When I got done with the Globetrotters, living in Indiana, my wife is like, you need to take all of your basketball knowledge and teach it to kids. And I'm like, oh, kids can go on YouTube. They're not going to have me. One, they're not going to pay me. Two, why don't they just go on YouTube and go find a trainer, virtually? But anyway, I ended up starting this company. It's called Derick Grant Basketball, where I started training 2 kids at a park. And a year later, it had ballooned over to over 350 kids. And I'm working with kids, WNBA players, NBA players. And I started to notice something different in each one of them. It wasn't their skill set that separated them. The guy in the NBA versus the guy who's playing overseas. It wasn't their skill set. I started to notice that it was their mind. And then I started to kind of, this deep thinker in me started to ask the question again, what if it has nothing to do with skill and it has all to do with mind? This is kind of when it started. And 2018, I got involved with a business partner who subsequently we said, let's move down to Naples, Florida. Let's start this business project. And Luke, 6 months in, everything went to hell. It was literally a movie. like to the point where, I mean, the FBI was involved. I mean, I can't get into it was wild. I asked myself, how did I get here? I lost everything. I lost all my money, lost the houses, lost cars, credit was ruined, and my wife and kids are looking at me like, what do we do? And we moved back to Indiana, licking our wounds. Exactly a year later, truth be told, I'm like, I can't do this thing called life anymore. I can't do it. If this is what life feels like, count me out. I don't have anything to do with it. And I was sitting here contemplating whether or not I want to live, and I heard a voice say, change the way you look at it. And that's when everything changed. Everything
Mm.
within me, literally in that moment, everything changed. And it was like, okay, I'm not experiencing the situation as I think. I'm experiencing this situation based on how I view it. And COVID happened. It gave me time to really build out what I wanted to do and help individuals to realize the power in their mind. And here we are now, about 5, 6 years later, and this is what it looks like.
Powerful stuff, man. But talk about changing perspective, and the other thing before I go into that is it's crazy because like before I started my coaching business and really stepping up and being able to serve and helping people, programs and all and stuff like that, I also had to go through a journey of hitting rock bottom
Mm,
financially, emotionally, like just going through a process of things not going my way. And I'm like,
mm,
why do we have to do that? Like, why does that have to happen first before we go, okay, now I don't have a choice,
yeah,
or now I can go this direction because I'm on the bottom. And like I say, sometimes rock bottom is the best place that you can be because you can't go anywhere else. You
that's it.
can't go any lower. You know
Yes.
that's it, right? So I went through something similar, man,
Mm,
and it's like and that's why you got the two choices, right? You can either move from desperation or inspiration, and sometimes we have to use both, But desperation definitely is a pain point for many of us, and I think like we can you can listen to as much motivation as you want. Why do you think that pain is what moves us? Why do we have to go to feel that pain before we
mm.
go, okay, that's enough. I can't do this anymore. I'm ready for change.
I wrestle with that quite a bit. And I, sometimes refer to this as the sacred wound, right? It's the wound, it's the pain that it's just too unbearable that we let go of everything. This was me. I thought I needed this amount of money. My house needed to be this big. I need to have these cars because the ego had developed such an attachment to it because that's what its identity was rooted in. But when you hit something that's so painful, what do? We drop it. We let go. And this is why I think on a soul level, we have to encounter the hardships, this sacred wound, so we can let go. So our ego can say, like, okay, white flag, I'm done here. And now the process of really remembering who we are can begin. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing, man. So yeah, going back to perspective, this is a good example, right? On change the way you look at things, right? So I was walking with my sister this evening, right? She's going to kill me for saying this stuff, but we were coming back from this office, right? And we're walking, and I'm walking with her, and it's about 5 p.m., so it's still kind of afternoon time.
Mm,
And she says the roads are really smooth here. They're really clean. And I'm like, yeah,
mm,
yeah. And as she does that, she steps up onto like the pavement because there's a step. And I step up over it. She steps up and she falls
mm.
like totally like bang, just
Man,
stacks it, right? And I'm like, oh shit, So I went and I picked her up, and she's, her hands are sore, and she's hit her knee, and she's in a bit of pain. But the night before as well, she fell in the bathtub. She's,
okay.
I'm like, oh shit, man, that's twice. I'm like, what's going to happen the third time? Be careful. But anyway, so
Right.
we're walking back, and I grabbed her, I put my arms around her, and I said, you know what? I said, it's better that you fell in Dubai with your brother
Mm,
than you falling by yourself walking somewhere in Poland when it was freaking freezing ice cold,
mm. Wow.
And she put her hand around me, and we had a laugh.
Wow.
But I was like, you could easily sit there and go, oh my gosh, I'm so clumsy. you know, I'm so
Right.
stupid. How did I not see the step? Why did I fall? You know,
Right.
instead, you think about it, I'm like, well, it's better that it happened with me, here
That's
together.
yeah.
We're going to look back in
Yeah.
5 years' time and go, oh my gosh, remember that time. Again, I've found myself, man, that everything happens for a reason. What is the meaning that you attach to? And I know that there's people out there. I don't know what you think about this statement, but I know that there's people out there that will say, no, things don't happen for a reason. But I say everything happens for a reason. Just up to you whether you want to attach a meaning to it or not.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. We're the ones who give meaning to life, which is why you and I could read the same book, same words, but you and I will have a different experience. You and I will have that book will have different meaning to each of us because we each subjectively are assigning meaning to everything that we encounter. When you realize this is when the game changes. This is when you realize how much power you have, that your reality, albeit what you desire, what you don't desire, is being experienced and created. That experience is being created by you. So it's asking yourself, like, really, what do I want to experience? And then I got to have the mind power to be able to steer my thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Powerful stuff, man. How do you differentiate? Because I know that the ego is something that's not always easy to understand. I mean, I'm very aware of like when I'm in my ego versus when I'm heart centered and I'm coming
Mm,
from that's why I say the difference between ego is, are you coming from unconditional love? Because if you are, then you're not in your ego.
right, right.
But how would you explain that to someone who's like, what's the ego, or how do I understand, if I'm in
Yeah.
my ego?
Yeah. I think probably the easiest way is to understand the concepts of future and past, right? Future and past are just mind made, they don't actually exist. The only thing
Yeah.
that exists is the present moment.
Mm.
The ego can only live in the future and the past. That's where it
Hmm.
builds its homes. So
Mm.
if my mind, if I'm feeling fear, stress, anxiety, worry, that those are future based thoughts. That's my
Hmm.
ego. I'm
Hmm.
living in the
Hmm.
future. If I feel regret, shame, guilt, right, depression, this is my mind being in the past. This is the ego. So this is why we always talk about, being present, being present, being present, because it's essentially you living as your true nature, the divinity within you. So for me, I always check to see, like, okay, is my mind in the future, is in the past? And then two, how do I feel? More importantly, whatever I'm thinking, say I have a desire, I have a want, right? How would I feel if I didn't get that thing, if it didn't happen? If it puts me in a lower state, this is how we know it was the ego. It was developing its attachment, its identity to this accomplishment, to this thing. So I tell people with desires and goals, because people say, oh, well, am I supposed to not have any goals? It's not that. Your goal is coming from the place of, I know I can do it, so which is why I don't need to, versus, I gotta do this. I gotta have
Mm.
this.
Mm.
The ego develops attachment to subsequently create suffering, which in turn keeps it in the survival mindset. And this is how this cycle just keeps going and going and going.
Interesting. Interesting, man. Thanks for sharing. So I was
Sure.
watching a David Goggins post. I don't know if you saw it, but his I think his missus or his partner, or whoever it is that was recording him while he's running his 100-mile run,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
was basically just saying, hey, I'm with David. He's been running for 66 miles now, and I saw a post after that he posted because he was just bringing to people's attention how many people were non-followers that were commenting on his previous post about him running this 100 miles. And I went on just to have a look as well because I found it to be quite interesting because there was a lot of people that were putting out comments that were not in support of like what he was doing. They were just basically saying that he's mentally unstable and he's lost the plot, and you know he's escaping life or whatever, like, you know what I mean. And it was interesting to see that, and so it's like almost like, again, everyone's making these opinions and judgments but don't really actually know the person in a sense, and I find that that's what we tend to do, and everyone's living from that space because and we're so like disconnected, but we're so connected, like on social media, and we're judging constantly. I mean, I learned this when I was living in the Shaolin Temple. Every single time a new person came into the temple, it was like you were a dog in a backyard and you were like barking because you're like, no, this is my territory. And every single time a new person came in, my ego would be like, it'd be like I'm a Terminator, and I'm like scanning the body and scanning the person for who they are, and thinking, and questioning, wondering, like, and judging them straight away. It goes to show, like, on that post with David Goggins, like, so many people are out there just judging and judging and judging and judging. I'm like, is this a positive sign for humanity moving forward? You know what I mean? Like, where is everybody? Where is everybody's minds? Is it like, are people really losing themselves? Like, because we're just constantly like out of our own. We're not connected in a sense. It's almost like the ego is there the whole time.
That's where a lot of people don't realize your life is based on your perspective. I'm not actually experiencing David Goggins. I'm experiencing my perspective of David Goggins. And my perspective was shaped off of past experiences.
Mm.
So this actually has nothing to do with David Goggins, but the unconscious mind, though, the ego looks at David Goggins and say, who does he think he is? Why is he over here running? No, that's because something in your life in the past that you're unaware of is being projected onto it. So this is why, like, I always tell people, like, I could go on and on about the school system. Like, kids should be understanding this. Kids should be taught this at an early age to understand that I'm not experiencing them, him and her. It's me. It's my perspective. Now I have to bring to awareness why I have the perspective that I have. When I have that awareness, I can now start to shift my perspective of this person. I think the Bible said it. We say I think the 10 Commandments, treat thy neighbor as thyself.
Mm-hmm.
People think it's more about treating the neighbor. You had to understand yourself and why you treated yourself that way, because that would be how you treated your neighbor, because your neighbor was nothing more than a reflection of you. So I live by the old adage, Luke, it's just me. I got to figure out me, because if I can figure out you, I can figure out me, I can figure out you, because you were just a reflection of me.
Yeah, well, I always say the deeper that you know yourself, the more you're going to be able to understand other people.
Exactly.
Exactly. And you're right. I always also say, you can't give what you don't have. So people are always projecting towards you exactly what's going on within themselves. So it's not David Goggins, it's them, just expressing themselves of what is really going on within themselves, which is crazy and powerful to understand and learn about, But success is something that I think, we can live in our egos, we can live in the materialistic world, and I truly believe that as well, that there's nothing wrong with achieving goals and manifesting whatever it is that you want. I think the most important part of like life itself, obviously, is what is fulfilling for you? What is peace for you? What does that look like? So I'm curious if you could share with us, kind of like, when someone says, what's your definition of success? I mean, someone once said your definition of success is doing what you love and getting paid for it. So I say as well, definition of success is inner peace. But what does that look like for you when someone says, if you say, having peace is success, or being healthy is successful, what would you say?
Yeah, I know for me personally, I've had to reshift my perspective of success, because when I was quote unquote successful back when I had all those things, I sure didn't feel like it. And then when I was going through this phase of, getting back up on my feet, it didn't look like I was successful, but I felt more peace. So I go by the old adage that success is the process of moving forward. Am I moving forward? Am I expanding my self-awareness? Am I loving my wife and my children a little bit better? Am I growing my business? Am I moving forward? Am I obtaining more peace inside? So, my this is the athlete in me, but like, I just want to be better today than I was yesterday. That's it. If I can do that, then I'm being successful. I'm moving forward. So my definition of success is, it used to be rooted in material things, but now it's just the internal game. And it's like, how much better can I understand who and why I am? So.
Yeah, and you remind me of what Tony Robbins says. He says progress equals happiness.
Mm. Oh,
Progress. Are you making
yeah,
progress? If you're making progress, then you are moving forward. You know,
yeah.
so that's really powerful. But when you talk about your success in the past, when you're an athlete,
Mm.
why didn't it feel like it?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's because the ego creates these expectations of what it will look like, what it will feel like, what it's going to be. And we know that expectations, when we have them, they never get met, right? You think it's going to be, oh, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. And then you get there, like, this is it. So me personally, I've come to just enjoy the journey, right? And realize that there's no top of the mountain. There was no goal, because when I got to that goal, it just became a checkpoint for the next goal and then the next goal. So I think part of it was like that the cartoon with the carrot in front of the donkey, and you just keep chasing, you keep chasing, you keep chasing, and you never get there. So I have to start enjoying here, because even when I get there, it's just going to be another here. So I started to fall in love and enjoy the process of obtaining or getting to where I was headed, but understanding where I was heading wasn't going to make me more whole or more fulfilled. It was just going to be temporary and fleeting. Let me focus on this process of becoming and accepting myself and learning more about myself along the journey. And now when I get there, the fulfillment, the success, everything will come as a byproduct of me learning myself. So I think that's been the biggest shift within me. I told my wife, I'm like, I wasn't super competitive as an athlete because I was never competing against anybody outside of me. It was like, how hard can we go? How great can I be? And now it's shifted in business and in life. Like, how much, forever, however long you have on this earth, can you figure out about yourself? Can you learn about yourself? Can you heal your wounds? That's become the new goal now. And now it's internal, it's not external.
Mm, absolutely, man. Powerful stuff. Thanks for sharing, man.
Thank
So,
you.
one of the, I guess, internal drivers that we have is if your why is strong enough or powerful, then the how will be easier.
Mm,
Is there a reason for your determination? Like, what would you say that your why? What is that for
mm.
you? Is there many different whys that you have like taken on along the way up until now, where it's the reason why you get up in the morning, it's the reason why you hustle, it's the reason why you're doing what you're doing, and you're so passionate about it?
Yeah, I think as far as what I do now for a living, it's happening on a spiritual level. It's happening on a soul level. I
Mm,
can't not do this, right? It's like literally my soul is like, this is what we came here to do. You got to get it done.
mm,
Now the bigger motivation, the why, is I know I don't have to do anything. I don't have to. So everything becomes like I'm playing with house money. Let's see if we can. I had this mentality, Luke, that I had to do this, then I would be enough. I had to accomplish this. Now I could be proud of myself. I had all these permission slips that I had given out because I had not given myself permission to accept myself. So now my why isn't rooted in I got to do this so dad can be proud of me. My why is I don't need to do it. I don't have to because I'm still enough. I'm still worthy. But because I know this, let's see if we can do this now. Let's go try it. So now I'm coming from the higher vibration instead of coming from a lower vibration of lack, of fear, of guilt, of shame. So my why has become so much more intrinsic and so much more universal. And I have control over the why instead of the why being an unconscious wound of if I get that or do this, now I'll be good enough in my own mind.
mm. Yeah, talk about feeling good enough, man. You know, I struggled with that for years,
Mm,
and it's incredible. And I want to ask you, like, how have you changed that within yourself? Before I talk about myself in terms of how I did that with me, but how did you
yeah.
change that around, or how do you even feel enough? If you don't feel
Mm.
enough, how do you turn that around?
Yeah, that's one of the slippery tactics of the ego again. Think about enough. Enough is a future concept, right? Because everything is present. Everything is in the present moment. So anything outside of it is actually an illusion. So it's like, will I have enough money? The money that you have is enough. The key is to understand that enough only exists in the present moment. That's the only place where everything is enough. There's enough leaves on the trees right now. There's enough money in your account. There's enough of everything only right
Mm,
now. But the
mm, mm.
mind can think about, do I have enough for tomorrow? Will I be enough for her next year? Will I be enough moving forward? So I know for me
Yeah,
personally, what has helped immensely,
yeah, bro.
I'm already enough. There's
Yeah,
no, there's no like, there's nothing more to do about it.
yeah,
Can I
yeah, yeah.
recognize it?
What you're saying is resonating with me hard. Because yeah, we're always forecasting. It's always like you're thinking about what's going to happen in the future, how things going to be. You know, what if things change, or what if this happens, or that, and it's like, man, I don't even know if I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning.
Right,
You know,
right.
um, yeah, and that's so powerful because yeah, it's coming back to the present moment. But the other deeper thing is that there isn't a present moment. Is that we're constantly transitioning from
By the time you
part.
get present, it's gone. There's a new present. Yeah,
There's no present moment because there's just this, and this is like a second ago was the past,
right.
right? And a second ago was the future, and then we crossed over, So it's complicated, eh? Someone who's listening
Yeah,
is probably
man.
like, man, I'm tripping out. But you get it. You get what we're talking about. So I think one of the things that obviously it's very easy to get conditioned into a negative mindset, into living in a very inferior state of being, insecurities. I struggled with it, for so many years. The feeling of not feeling good enough, not fitting in.
Mm,
Did you ever struggle with that? Like, did you ever
yeah,
feel like I needed to be a specific way, dress a specific way, think a specific way, talk a specific way so that I could be accepted or so that I could fit in,
uh,
for example? Like you could have played basketball because, well, I want to be part of the team.
that's exactly it. I told you earlier that I moved around a lot, so I'm always the new kid at school. So when you're kids, like you got to establish yourself in the social hierarchy like quick, or you get ousted. So I learned how to become a chameleon. I learned how to take that mask off and put this mask on, so I'd be accepted. So it ended up becoming a survival mechanism that by the time I got in my 20s, my 30s, this is just the way I am. I can take this mask off and put this mask on based on who I'm around. And I realized what it was. You're wearing all these different masks because you feel like your face underneath won't be accepted. You won't be accepted just as you are. This is, truth be told, this is why I went as far as I did in basketball, because I realized that my mind had created this conundrum that if I get good enough at basketball, they have to accept me. And this became my why, my driving force. And this is where it's like everything hits rock bottom when you're done playing. I see this all the time with athletes. Your identity is so rooted in your performance. Now, what happens when you don't play? Now they sink into depression. They struggle with mental health problems. And it's because the unconscious mind, the ego, had rooted its worth in its performance or anything on the outside. So I tell this to anybody: you come into this world already worthy. You come in this world already enough. You're at 100. It's about, can you recognize and remember and realize by letting go of all of these attachments and identities and these masks that you had developed over years.
Yeah, it's when you become aware of this stuff. I mean, it took me a while, but when I realized, I was just like, hang on a second. So basically, I've given the power away to someone who
Mm.
doesn't live in my own body, right?
Yeah, wow.
To
Yeah.
decide whether I'm enough or not, whether I'm good
Mm.
enough or not.
Right.
And when I realized that, I was like, nah, that's not right.
Yeah.
And so it's these experiences of being accepted. I want to be accepted, and so we go deeper because it's like, well, if you don't feel accepted, I mean, what was missing? Where were you rejected?
Mm. Right.
What
Right.
experiences did you go through in your life where you were pushed away? And then you go even deeper and you go, well, what does a child need?
Mm. Right.
Love.
Right. Exactly.
And so it's almost like once you go down this trail, and that's why, like, the work you're doing, I know that you do this as well, and I'm sure that you work with many of your clients and you help them to go back into their past and their childhood and all that kind of stuff to figure this shit out. And I say, man, it's like it's your responsibility to do your research, man. Like, the one person that you have to live with for the rest of your life and you haven't done the research on yourself is to understand who the fuck you are. why you act the way you act, why you feel the way you feel, what you've been through, you know? So when I started doing this work, man, I was just like, man, this is deep shit. And especially from a male's point of view, this is the challenge, bro. Majority of like 80% of my clients are women,
Same here.
right? And it's
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
why are we hiding? All the men are
Mm,
hiding, you know? And it's
yeah.
like, why? It's like, well, because, you know, the ego is so powerful. Why is the ego so powerful in the masculine? It's less, and for women, you know, there's obviously, it's more feminine energy. It's more vulnerability, more emotion, right? And for us
Right.
men, it's like, nah, I'm good. I don't need to talk about fucking loving myself. I don't need to heal my past. I'm all right. I'll figure it out, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, that's why we're here. But what do you think in terms of that? Like, how do we break that seal so that like more men wake up and go, you know, shit, man, I should do some work on myself so that I can come back into my true authenticity and power?
Yeah. I think honestly, Luke, it's men like yourself, men like me who are doing the work, but then putting it out there saying, like, no, it's okay to work on yourself. It's okay to
Mm,
heal your wounds.
mm,
That's, it's going to take somebody who looks like us giving us permission. Right. So,
mm,
like, for the longest, I'm like, man, like 80% of my audience is women. It's like, but then I realized it's like, no, what it's showing is your message resonates with the feminine, but you're in the masculine energy. What if you start to broadcast it? How many more men you're giving permission to say, hey, you can go do this too? And I get a lot of DMs from guys that saying like, man, this has helped me a lot. Thank you. You know, I never realized I need to do this, but they
yeah.
would never publicly say it. So
Mm,
I think we're moving into the heart space now. I believe that this world is starting to shift back into the feminine energy. So healing and working on ourselves and, you know, getting rid of these narratives of these past traumas will become the norm instead of men just kind of pushing it off under the rug.
mm, mm. Yeah, man. Did you ever go through any sort of drug abuse or addictions or anything that kind of like was taking you away from your own possible, you know, doubts or fears or insecurities or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I wasn't. You know, I never struggled with substance abuse. You know, as being an athlete, I was always cognizant of what I put in my body, and you know, I always wanted to make sure I had, you know, optimal performance. But I tell people all the time, like, you don't have to have a substance abuse problem for it to be on the outside.
For sure.
You know, sometimes we get addicted to negative thoughts. We get addicted to these negative programs that we have, and this is our fix. And literally, we can't live without it. I have to have a negative thought because this is what I'm used to. This is what makes me feel comfortable. So now to break out of it and to heal is literally like going to rehab. Like, I can't do that. Are you kidding me? This has been my identity. So this was me for the longest. I guess we call this now self sabotage, but like very rarely would I encourage myself. I'm going to put myself down like, you idiot. What are you doing? You're so stupid. I can't believe you did. And it wasn't until me and my wife got married and she was like, why are you so hard on yourself? I don't understand. You know, as an athlete, though, I'm like, yo, this is what makes me who I am. And it's like, no, you actually probably would do better if you affirmed yourself, if you came from the space of love instead of coming from the place of shame and guilt. But, you know, I'm thankful and grateful that, like I said, I didn't struggle with anything. Like, no, there was no substance abuse, but I do have a lot of clients and I see the power that this can have over people. And, which is a part of, you know, why both of us really are doing our work, is to show people like, you don't need that to feel what you're looking
Mm,
for. It's
mm.
actually already inside of you. And here's the way to get to it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. I mean, there are obviously, it doesn't have to be substance abuse. You can be obsessed with food,
Sure.
Netflix, sex. Like, there's other
Absolutely.
things there. Everything's a drug if you want it to be, you know.
Right.
It's a form of escaping, right? So, yeah, I get that as well. But you talked about your wife a few times. And I know out there these days, it is definitely not easy to attract healthy relationships, you know, again, but that's probably just what you focus on. You could be focusing on that and then you don't see it as often. But I know that obviously I've worked with a lot of people who have been through many relationships that were very unhealthy, very toxic, very negative, very manipulative, very abusive. And so I'm curious to know, how much, because I mean, I know myself and I've seen this quote and I absolutely love it, and it says that having the right woman in your life is like printing money.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've listened to a podcast with Dean Graziosi and Lewis Howes, and I remember him interviewing Dean Graziosi, and he was talking to him about his relationship and his business, and he'd been with his missus that he's currently with right now, for a couple of years, and Lewis said to him, when has been your like most successful like year? And he said, the last 12 months, and he said, why? And he said, because of my wife.
Wow.
And when I heard that, it made sense, man.
Yeah.
It's for me, when I think about a relationship, I think about teamwork. I think about give and take. I think about supporting each other, encouraging each other. I think about the purpose of a relationship is to help each other become better versions of ourselves and,
Right.
reach new levels and grow together. So I'm curious to know, how does that work in terms of how you function in your relationship with your wife? Is that how and how do you maintain that balance of like supporting each other, and how much of a difference does it make for you in your life and your success?
When we hit rock bottom, that was something that both of us had to deal with. She was a stay-at-home mother. She feels like she was put here to take care of our kids, and then she had to go back to work. So the thing that she loved to do was taken away from her. So she hit her proverbial rock bottom. And what it did was it essentially gave both of us permission to go on a hunt to figure out who we are. Her way
Mm,
looked completely different than mine. The books that she's reading are completely different from the books that I'm reading, but yet the books are saying the same thing. She's getting the same thing out of it that I'm getting out of mine. So I always say this to couples: give your partner permission for them to learn and figure out who they are by you first doing it with yourself. Because people always ask me, well, what do I do if my partner doesn't want to work on themselves? They don't want to heal their wounds. I said, that had nothing to do with you. When you start working on yourself without conditions, remember, they're just a reflection of you. That's going to give them permission to do the same thing. So I can tell you this: my wife has been an unbelievable supporter. She has been, she's put things on the back burner that maybe she wanted to do to support, my mission and what I'm looking to do. And it's the balancing of the feminine and the masculine, right? We know when we have equal parts of feminine, equal parts masculine, something's going to be born, something's going to be
mm,
created.
yep.
So when I started to realize within my own life and what I'm trying to build in my career, how important it was to have a balanced feminine energy, this is when I started to really focus in on like, okay, I can start using my wife to help me get back to wounds that I'm unaware of. Because really, when you're in a relationship, you're really dating the wounds inside of you. So instead of getting upset or angry because something may have triggered me, it's realizing, wow, she's actually helping you get to parts of you that you weren't aware of. And I'm doing the same for her. And this is how we each balance out the masculine and feminine within ourselves.
Mm. How big is communication in your
Oh,
relationship? Because I think that is the fucking key, bro. Like,
dude.
I think that is the biggest problem in any relationship is, and one thing, like, I know that there's these love languages. I don't know if you've heard of these love languages, but one of the love
Sure.
languages for me, even though it's not a love language in that list of five, because of the overthinking and because of the rejection and the relationships that I went through in the past, for me is communication. That for me, that's a love language.
Mm,
You
yeah.
know, because what does it do? It creates clarity. It creates a
Right.
knowing rather than a contemplation of what's going on. Why haven't they messaged me? Why didn't they talk to me? Why are they doing this? What are they doing? Or just like the thought of like not knowing creates confusion, which creates a
Right.
waste of energy because then it creates thoughts. Thoughts are energy, you know?
Right. Right.
Um, so how big is that like in your relationship?
Dude,
And
it is everything. I say communication to a relationship is like water to a tree. If you want a
mm,
tree to grow, you got to have water. If you want a relationship to grow, communication has to be the foundation of it. For me and my wife, we're fortunate because our first 6 years of marriage, I was with the Globetrotters. So I was gone 9 months out of the year. So we were
mm,
forced to communicate. We were forced to get to know each other on a deeper level because this was the only way we could have a relationship. So we take pride in being able to express ourselves and leaving that space and saying, here, I may not agree with your perspective, but I will always provide a space that you can express your perspective to me. And my job really wasn't to agree with it. My job was to at least see your perspective. So I always tell people in relationships, a lot of times when we argue and fight, it's because you're trying to agree or disagree. Stop agreeing or disagreeing. See where their perspective is coming from. And what it
Mm,
does is it allows you to see so much more of the picture now instead of only seeing it through your narrow perspective.
hmm. Absolutely true, man. And it makes me think about how I work with my personal clients as well, because and with everyone for that matter, in family, friends, every person I connect with, because what I've learned to develop is this appreciation, not only because I've gone so deep within myself, but now I'm always putting myself in the person's shoes, right? Or doing my best to do that anyway. And that's why I'm able to like not sit here and try to go, no, you're fucking wrong, or no, this is the right way. It's like, well, how can I appreciate it and understand it from their point of view? And then, man, that just brings like so much more clarity and appreciation because, yeah, we're not projecting, we're not going from the ego, we're not trying to, it's not me versus you.
Right, right. No, that's so good, man. So good.
So yeah, man, powerful stuff. But yeah, thanks for sharing that stuff about. I know it's your personal life, but
Oh,
relationships are definitely something that take us down this journey of like learning as well. Like you said, bringing up wounds and they definitely teach you so much about yourself. But
yeah.
yeah, I took a long break from relationships. 2018. I said, okay, that's enough. No more relationships. I'm going to have a relationship with myself. And I always say that, you have to live with you for the rest of your life. Why would you not want to get to know yourself? So, my question to you is, how important is your relationship with yourself? Do you spend a lot of time in solitude? What are the things that you do to keep yourself in a positive state of being? And I know that many people who are not used to being with themselves, or have been from relationship to relationship to relationship, they never go through a journey of healing. They've just gone from bouncing from one person to the next. And I always say, man, if you've been in a toxic relationship, one of the best things that you can do from not being in that relationship anymore is to actually go on a journey of solitude and spend more time with yourself, understand like who you are, and grow, so that, like I say, if you want better, if you want to attract better, you have to become better. So most people have this fear of like, I can't be alone. Then we go back to, your branding as life is mental. It's like, well, no, you can't. You can be alone, but mentally in your own mind, you're living in a lot of like scarcity and fear
Right.
of being with yourself. So how
Yeah.
important is that for you, man? And like, what are some of the things that you do that help you to live in that positive, good state of being?
Yeah. No, I actually, me and my wife met when I told myself I just came out of a relationship that was toxic. She had too. And unbeknownst to us, I told her, myself, I'm not going to date anybody for a year. I'm not going to date anybody. She had said the same thing to herself. And this is actually when we found each other. But yourself and the level that you love yourself and accept yourself, it'll be the same level that you love and accept your partner. So when I started to realize this, I'd say probably in the last 2 or 3 years, every morning, 30 minutes minimum by myself with myself. And what I'm doing is I am giving myself everything that I know it needs to hear. It needs to know that it's enough. It needs to know that it's loved. It needs to know that it's accepted. Sometimes this is in a meditative state. Sometimes it's just me sitting there doing some slow rhythmic breathing. But I'm giving myself what I need before the day starts. Because if my cup is full, now I can help fill up everybody else's cup. And it's now a routine. It's like it's a part of my life. My kids know when daddy's door is closed, leave him alone because he's in there spending time with himself to get himself and give himself what he needs. So we've been conditioned, Luke, to think it's selfish. It's the wildest thing I've ever heard in my life. That like, so I'm not supposed to take care of myself. I'm not supposed to love myself. Like I should love everybody else first, but how I love them will be in direct proportion to how I love myself.
Yeah, bro. Like that's why I say, man, you can't give what you don't have, you know? So,
Exactly.
but I get it where people are people pleasers because they want that validation and they want to feel like they are somebody or that they've done something good because they'll get some sort of gratification or some sort
Mm.
of reaction from people. So it's that giving which also people can get lost in, because it gives you something back. And if we're feeling empty, well, what's going to make you feel better? Well, if I give something, but then again, like you said, it can be seen as selfish if you take care of yourself or if you put yourself first. But like you said, man, fill your cup first, then you can fill everybody else's. But self love and this whole journey, even for me, like it's been huge. It's actually what has transformed my life because I never
Mm.
had that relationship with myself,
Yeah.
and I'm curious, man, when did you first kind of become aware of like that it was important to love yourself or
Mm.
that this was even a thing? Like, I mean, if I look back 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I never even heard of it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
How
It.
have you implemented this into your life and how is and how powerful is this emotional energy within yourself? How much does it make a difference in how you care for your children, your wife, your clients, like the people that you're close to, because you
Mm.
intentionally have this relationship with yourself, or that you actually give yourself attention or give yourself that love? And how do you do that?
Yeah. I found over time, I started to realize that, just through journaling and really logging and documenting my day, I was best when I was best. I was best with my family, clients, everyone when I was best with myself, meaning I was coming from a place of love, of living through my heart center. But it really clicked for me when this past fall, I went and spent 5 days in the darkness retreat. So I'm sitting in the dark Monday, go in Monday, come out Friday, right? And you're sitting there, and then it's all these narratives that have been running when you could see everything. Well, now you can't see anything. You can't see your hand in front of your face. And these narratives are still running. And I'm realizing, holy crap, this is only happening in here. And I started to see how little I truly accept myself, how little I really love myself without conditions. Because we love ourselves, but the ego's so sneaky and so subtle that we'll love ourselves, but there's conditions to it. I got to do this. I got to be this. I got to have this. So that was really when it clicked for me. Like, okay, I have to be super intentional of affirming myself. This is where affirmations come in for me personally, of telling myself, I accept you. And I'm not saying I accept me. I'm saying I accept you because I'm talking to the wounded part of me that forgot it was accepted. So that's for me is like a daily thing. I mean, I do it all throughout the day. Anytime that I feel insecure, anytime I feel like I'm not enough, I know that it's an illusion. I'm falling back into this old space. And at that moment, I have to have the awareness to tell that little boy inside of me, you're enough just as you are, and I accept you.
So there were some sort of experiences that as a child may have occurred for you to then develop that kind of conditioning that you felt like you weren't enough.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And
Yeah.
I had a great childhood. I didn't have any cigarettes put out on me, and I always had a roof over my head and clothes on my back and food on the table. But people don't realize that trauma is relative. So if you emotionally don't get what you need, I grew up with, two parents that were raised in the 50s. So I got spanked. I got beat with a leather belt. And when I got sent back to my room, guess what I would feel? Shame, guilt.
Mm-hmm.
That energy creates a wound. So
Mm.
now the 8-year-old who felt like he wasn't enough and then feels shameful for getting spanked is the same inside of the 41-year-old who can't say no to this person because of the shame he's going to feel knowing that he let them down. So I always tell people we all have wounds, all of us. I don't care if you had the quote unquote perfect childhood. We all have wounds. It's the cosmic order of us returning back to ourselves. You have to have wounds so you can get back to truly what you are. And that's what the game of life is.
Yeah, bro. Freaking hell, man. It's I went through some similar stuff that you're sharing as well, and I'm sure that many people who are listening can relate, and this is the process that, yeah, it is the uncomfortable journey, hence why, there's all these types of forms of escapism, because, facing yourself is probably one of the hardest things that you can do,
Yeah.
but it's the most liberating. So, it's something that I've had to go through myself, and that's, I guess that's why we're here, bro, to wake people up and to help people, go through this journey, because, it's the best thing that you can ever do when you actually work on yourself and you push the ego away and you come back to unconditional love and acceptance for yourself.
Yes.
Because what you really do is you step into authenticity, and obviously it requires vulnerability, and that's why I say vulnerability is a freaking superpower. It's authenticity, and it's the authenticity. I say the reason why you're not living your dreams and you're not in your purpose is because you're not being authentic.
Right. That's it.
So, and in talking about authenticity, how has that changed your life?
Yeah, I'm really big on like the etymology of words and understand the definition of the origins of word. And I looked up authenticity, and authenticity is basically the origin of something. When you understand the origin of something, you understand its authenticity, right? So I started to think about our own lives. We all have these fractured parts of our mind, these fractured parts of our psyche, our wounds, but you don't know when and where those wounds originated because you haven't gone back to deal with it. You used to talk about looking yourself in the mirror and really dealing with your stuff. I started to realize the more I can identify where and when this wound was afflicted or when this perspective was gained, I'm becoming more authentic because I'm getting to the origin of where that character, that mask, that persona was created. So I know for me, authenticity is everything. It's one of the three pillars of my company. It's like we're just going to be how we are. We're just going to be how we are. And what you see is what you get. But in order to do that, you'd have to know who you are, which is why, going back to answer your question earlier, the wound is so needed, that thing that breaks you, because that's actually what starts the path of you finding what you had left behind.
Hmm. Powerful stuff, man. I love it. But you just
Oh,
said
thank you.
you have to know who you are. So,
Yeah.
uh, how do you, if I ask you the question and say, who are you?
Yeah. It's a great question. I've wrestled with this all the time. I am. Okay, Luke, stay with me here. I
I know,
am
but it's,
no thing, but
yeah.
I'm everything. It's the paradox. What am I? I am. I don't. I am. I don't know. Whatever
Yeah.
I am, I am. So
Energy.
there's no words to encapsulate really what I am.
Mm,
So it's like I just am. That's it.
mm,
I'm pure awareness, pure consciousness, infinite
mm,
potential, infinite creativity.
mm,
But there's
mm,
no words to encapsulate that. So I am.
mm. Yeah, yeah, no, it's, man. There's not, the thing is that, like, there's no right or wrong. It's like, it's so deep to like, because most people say, well, who am I? Oh, I'm Luke.
Right. Yep.
But Luke's a name that your parents gave
Right.
you,
Right.
and it's like, well, how do we go deeper than that to the knowing of, like, am I a spirit? Am I energy?
Yeah.
Unlimited potential, like you said. Pure consciousness, pure love. I am love. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, So, but yeah, it's powerful
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, man, thank you so much for sharing
Dude.
your wisdom and coming on to the Luke Mind Power podcast. And this is the first time that we've got to kind of connect and vibe. And I'm
Yeah.
definitely loving your wisdom and your energy and your work on social media and everything that you're putting out there, because it really resonates with me. But also, it's impacting people's lives, man. And this is the powerful
Yeah.
stuff, the powerful tool that we have, I guess, as we are to able to take action and share our work, using technology, to make a difference. So I'm just going to
Yeah.
tell you from one brother to another, man. Keep
Mm.
fucking going, bro. Keep smashing it. Keep
Man.
showing up. Keep taking
Man.
action. I know, because you can go, well, I don't need to hear it because I believe in myself and I know. And by the way, just before I finish up, because I know that you got a video on this and I was listening to it, and you're like, I don't need to believe in myself. I know myself. I've
Yeah,
heard you,
man.
bro, talk about that, right?
It,
So I understand that. But the
Yeah.
concept of believing is so powerful,
Sure.
you know?
Sure. Yeah.
But I get where you're coming from, and I'm
Yeah.
curious to know, can you intertwine the two, because before
Mm.
we know, we have to believe,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
But in the process of believing, before you know, it's actually really powerful to go, no, I do believe in myself. I get to a point now where I'm like, yeah, I don't need to believe. I know who the hell I am,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
No, for sure. Yeah. There's levels. I always say there's levels, right? I think, then it's I can, then it's I believe, then it's I know, and then it's I am.
Mm,
The goal is get to the end, I am. But a lot of times we stop at I believe, right? And it's like, no, there's two more levels after that. And if you can get into the one right before the end, you're naturally just going to flow into the I am. So, dude, I'm telling you what, man, it's funny when I first stumbled across your videos, and I don't know where it was, but you were dancing, right? It was you were dancing in the dirt, and I said to myself, I'm like, I don't even know this guy, but his energy lifted me up. I'd never
mm,
seen it before, didn't know it. Like in that moment, I had a smile on my face. I was just like, hell yeah. So from one brother to another, dude, like I see you. Keep going. You're helping the world, man. And one of these days we're going to connect in person. I'm going to be dancing in the dirt with you. And thank you. Thank you for helping humanity at the level that you are, because I know what you go through. I know, there's some days we have our ups, we have our downs, we're wearing and taking on other people's energy. But for you to show up every day and help this world, man, thank you. I just want to truly tell you thank you for that.
thanks, man. I appreciate that, and I receive all of it, and I already know that we're going to do some big things together, man. So I look forward to
Sure.
staying in touch with you and growing and continuing to take action, showing up. And I really appreciate your time coming on the podcast and sharing your wisdom with us, man. But before we go, bro, just where can people find you? Your website, Instagrams.
My website is DG Mindset, Derick Grant. So dgmindset.com. All social media is at DG Mindset. Um, you can also subscribe to my YouTube at DG Mindset. My podcast is called The Pathway to Your Results, which you're going to be a guest on it here before 2024 is over with, because I feel like my audience, your message will resonate with them on a whole nother level. So I always make it easy. Everything is at DG Mindset.
Beautiful, man. Love it. And have you, because I saw you had a retreat as well happening, I think in Arizona or somewhere. Do you have any
Yeah.
events coming up?
Yeah. So I actually have the three big events that I have left is Rise, which will be in Dubai actually on March 3rd. It's basically a festival, a 1 day event to help you to step into who you are. It's going to be amazing. Great speakers will be there. And then also my own personal retreats. We have two locations left. We're going to the Grand Canyon, where we spend time in nature to really connect with the natural, the real part of ourselves. And then lastly, our last stop on the retreat tour will be in Hawaii. We're going to Maui. This is where we learn how to balance being a human and being a being, and integrating and incorporating it all into life. So, like I said, more information can be found at dgmindset.com. And I always tell people, feel free to send me a DM, send me an email. I'm here to help the world, help you remember who you are. So if there's any way I can do it, don't hesitate to reach out.
Amazing. Love your work. DG Mindset in the house on the Luke Mypel podcast, guys. Check him out. You're going to love his stuff and his energy, and he's amazing. And I look forward to staying connected with you, man. And we're doing some big things.
Yes, absolutely, Luke. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining me on this journey of self-discovery and growth. If you're ready to grow and reach your full potential and find inner peace, send me a DM that says, I want inner peace, and I'll send you the next steps. You can accomplish anything you set your mind to. When you change your mind, you change your whole life. So don't hesitate and send that DM over to me. Myself and my team can't wait to meet you and witness your transformation in full glory. See you next week.